Alright, today we are looking at comparing and ordering decimals. We're going to start with the comparing part of it. When we are comparing decimals, it's going to look something like this, where you have two decimals and you're essentially just telling me which one do you think is bigger. Now, some of you are already able to look up there and know I know which one is bigger. That's okay. What I would recommend is rewriting these. The way I like to rewrite them is I put a couple of decimal points. There's two numbers. I'm going to put 2 decimal points. Very important to keep everything nice and aligned in order to use this strategy. So I go to the first number. I see a 0 before the decimal. I see a 1 and an 8 after. Everything nice and neat. This one I see a 0 before the decimal. And I see a 2 and a 4 after the decimal. The way our number system works is the bigger numbers, the bigger place values are that way. So it doesn't matter anymore necessarily how long the number is. We're looking at what has the greatest value. So we're looking at for numbers in bigger place values. Now, this is where if I was working on my paper, I might take a little note card or something. I'm going to represent that with a big piece of construction paper to do it up on the board. What I would do, my numbers are the same length, so that's good. I'm going to cover up everything except for the first place value. I'm going to compare just those. I see a 0 and a 0. I can't tell much from that because they're exactly the same. So I move over, there's my decimals, I come to here. I see a 1, I see a 2. Now it does not matter how far any of these go or what's on the other side, I can tell just by looking at this place value which one is bigger. Since this is a bigger place value than what's over here, a 2 here is worth more than whatever this is because there's only a 1 there. So I know the one with a 2 in the 10th place is bigger, which happens to be this one. So I would write this as 1800ths is less than 2400ths. And let's do another one. Let's say we had this decimal, and we want to compare that to this decimal. Okay. So I'm going to use the same strategy. I have two numbers. I'm going to put 2 decimal points. Decimal point, decimal point. I see a 0 before, and I see a 2 after. I see a 0 before, I see a 1 and an 8 after. Excuse me. And we're looking at this. You see how there's kind of a blank spot there? We don't like blank spots when we're working. So this 0 is not going to change how much that is worth, but it makes them the same length, which is a lot easier for me to compare. So again, I'm going to use this. 0, 0. Can't tell much. A 1, a 2. Well, I know this one is bigger than. Does not matter what's over here. It doesn't matter that this is an 8 and this is a 0, because this place value is worth more. Okay? So the one with the 2 in the 10th place, again, is bigger. So I write this 2/10 is greater than 1800ths. Let's do one more before I give you some practice. Let's say we have something like this. And we want to compare that to something like this. Okay. Now, most of your life, you've probably been taught that the longer number is bigger. It's not necessarily the case. So let's use our strategy to just check which one is bigger. So I see a 1 before and a 5 after. I see a 0 before and a 9, and a 9, and a 6. Sorry, I was going to write another 9 there. All right. I see blank spots. I don't like blank spots, so I'm going to fill them in with zeros. Take this, and go like this. Well, I can already tell just from the first place that I'm looking at which one is bigger. Even though this one has numbers going farther out, this one has a bigger number and a bigger place value, so it is bigger. So the one that has a actual 1 is worth more. So 1 and 5/10 is greater than 0 and 996 thousandths. Okay? Let's do a little bit of practice. So I'm going to erase this to put up some problems for you. Here are the ones that I would like you to try. We're going to start with 0, 2600ths. I want you to compare that to this decimal right here. And I also want you to try this one compared to this one, and we'll try one more. Let's do this one and compare that to this one. So you might want to pause it where you can see those problems in order to write them down to practice. Alright, let's look at your solutions. I'm going to do that one just over here a little bit smaller. This is how I'd probably do it on my worksheet or in my notebook as well. So I'm just going to pull it over. I'm going to go decimal, decimal. See a 0, a 2, and a 6. See a 0, a 0, and a 5. I'm not going to grab my paper. I'm just going to use my hand right now. I see 0, 0. See 2, 0. I know this one's bigger. It might even help circle it so I don't forget by the time I get back to here. So this one is greater than that one. I come over, decimal, decimal, 1.2, 1.05. I see this blank spot right here. I like to fill that in. Then I look, 1, 1, still tied. 2, 0, this one is bigger. So 1 and 2 tenths is greater than 1 and 500ths. Going down to the last example, see a 0.015, a 0.3. I see blank spots. I don't like blank spots. I have a 0, 0, a 0, 3. This one is bigger. So 15 thousandths is less than 3 tenths. If you did not understand those, I want you to go back and look at those again. Alright, now that we know how to compare two of them, we're going to move on to ordering them. And most of the time they're going to ask us to order them from least to greatest. So always remember, when it's least to greatest, we want to put the smallest one first, all the way over to the biggest one. We're going to use the exact same strategy we did, except we're going to do it with 4 decimals instead of 2. And it works however many decimals you want. So I have 4 numbers, so I'm going to write 4 decimal points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, for some reason, on worksheets, on standardized tests, things like that, they like to make it as confusing as possible by using the same digits. So we're going to practice one like that. Normally, they won't have all of the exact same digits like that. But, so if I go to rewrite that first one, 1 on this side, 9 here. Then I see a 0, decimal, 1, 9. I see a 19. Now that might be a little bit confusing for some of you. And a 19, the decimal point is over here. Remember, the decimal is always after the ones place. So it's going to look like this. And then 1.09. Now what you might notice is when we go to order, there's a lot of blank spots. We want these all to be kind of the same length so that we can compare them very, very easily. So fill in all of those blank spots. I would even fill in these with zeros as well, just to make sure that they're all the same length. Now this is where you really need to focus and pay attention, so you remember to put them least to greatest, because we're actually going to find them in order from greatest to least, so we'll actually probably fill it in from here going that way. So when I look at the first place, I can obviously see one of those is bigger than the rest of them. So this one is the biggest. I go back, which one was that? That was the 19. So I'd like to write it on here the way that was written originally in the problem. After I've done it, I'm going to go ahead and just cross that out so I don't worry about it anymore. So I'm down to 3 of them. I move over. I see a 1, a 0, and a 1. Now, I might not be able to tell which one's the biggest from that, but I can tell which one is the smallest. I know this one and this one are bigger than that one, which means this one is the smallest. So that was the decimal 19. That was this one right here. So I know that's the smallest, so I need to put that way over here. Like that, and I can cross it out. Now I'm down to 2. Okay, I move over. I see a 9, I see a 0. So here's your choice if you want to write down the smallest one, then the next biggest one, or the biggest one, and then the smallest one. It doesn't matter. I just know this one is bigger than that one. That's the 1 decimal 9. That was the first one. 1 decimal 9. And then the 1 decimal 09 would go here. Okay. If you need to review that, just go back and review that now. Here's the problem that I want you to solve. Again, we're going to go from least to greatest. So let's start with 2.10, 2.01, 0.21, and we'll do 21.00. So I want you to go ahead, pause it, and solve that problem now. All right, let's see how you did. So I have 4 numbers. I'm going to write 4 decimal places. 2, 3, 4. Fill them in. 2.10, 2.01, 0.21, and 21.00. I got a couple blank spots here. Go ahead and hold up my paper to see which one is the biggest or the smallest. I can see the biggest one, so that's going to go way at the end. That's the one that was 21.00. And we cross that one out. And we can move over a spot. I see 220, so this one is obviously the smallest. So there's one that was decimal 21, that's this one right here. 0.21. Cross that one out. We can keep going. A 1 and a 0. So this one's a little bit bigger, so 2.10 would go here. And then the last one, 2.01. So go ahead and mark how you were feeling about this skill.